Let's get part 2 of Caffe Panna's holiday pack underway. The last 3 pints we have are Bourbon Balls, Panna World, and Strong Rope. Bourbon Balls, which we have here, is a vanilla bourbon ice cream with a raspberry swirl, shards of the infamous Amano chocolate, and bourbon balls. If you're not a fan of bourbon or whiskey, you might as well exit left. I'm not saying it's overpowering because there is a very good balance, but it is heavier on the bourbon. I mean, even when I remove the lid, all it smells just like bourbon. However, the milky, creamy sweetness of the vanilla is a good pairing and helps take some of that booze off of your palate. Due to the mix-ins, there's a heavy amount of a darker, more bitter chocolate and also a bitter, tartar fruit flavor. The shards of Amano chocolate, they're everywhere, but they are also a dark, bitter, and fruity chocolate. So that goes hand in hand with the raspberry swirl that has a thick, jelly-like texture. And I say hand in hand because even though it starts sweet, it finishes fairly tart while also maintaining that authentic raspberry flavor. You might be like me and thinking, what the heck is a bourbon ball? So they crush cookies, chop pecans, and they add some sort of like sweetener, like corn syrup, to bind it together and into this little ball. And then obviously bourbon's in there as well. But then they take that ball of goodness and they coat it in chocolate. And for extra measure, they add a pecan half on top of it. The bourbon is stronger in the base. And I think that's because there's many more flavors at play with the bourbon ball. You have the darker chocolate, you have the pecan nuttiness, and it's also a tad sweet. Now imagine a refrigerated candy bar. Let's say a Snickers. I have a deconstructed bourbon ball here to show you, but a crunchier outer chocolate shell with a dense and tough, chewy filling, similar to that of a nougat that you might find in, say, a Snickers. I think this one was executed very well, even though it doesn't appeal to me. No offense, I'm just not a bourbon guy. But I do know a good ice cream when it's put in front of me. 8.5 out of 10. Panna World is a salted chocolate peanut butter ice cream with peanut butter flecks, Oreo brittle, and graham crunch. Arguably the sexiest description of the entire holiday pack. There is a lot of peanut butter in this base, and there's 2 main reasons I know that. First off, it takes forever to temper. You want to talk about having patience? This is the longest I've ever waited on a pint. Secondly, there's a heavy, and I mean heavy, peanut butter flavor that is very salty. In fact, it's not a stretch to say that you can hardly taste the chocolate. There's enough chocolate to know that it's not straight peanut butter, but this is definitely for the peanut butter lover. I wasn't quite sure what peanut butter flecks were, but it was obvious once I removed the lid. It's basically just drizzled peanut butter, as you can see up here. It looks and comes in the form of a hardened, crunchy shell, whereas the base was more of an actual peanut taste with tons of salt. The flex is more like scooping peanut butter right from the jar. Small downfall, the Oreo brittle doesn't do much for the pint. You can occasionally see like chunks, small chunks of Oreo cookie, but they have zero flavor, which I honestly expected as soon as I tasted how strong the peanut butter was in this ice cream. The graham crunch was very top heavy, which you'll see in my next post. And I was shocked at how well its honey graham sweetness stood out and even paired with all that salty peanut butter flavor. However, after that initial crispy, crumbly layer, I did not come across any more. Yes, this pint has its flaws, but it's still a pretty good ice cream. Just know that you're getting a strong, salty peanut butter presence if you choose to order this pint. 7.5 out of 10. Strong Rope is a stout ice cream with pecan pie crust and filling, plus a cocoa caramel swirl. It is named so because the stout used in the ice cream or base comes from a brewery named Strong Rope. And me being completely honest with you, I've had one, maybe two stouts in my life. Once again, I'm just not a fan. So, me scooping this base, I can tell you it just doesn't do a lot for me. A strong cream flavor with a little of what I'm gonna say is a darker molasses maltiness to it. Now, I'm sure if you're a stout connoisseur, you'll think otherwise. But, like I said, it just doesn't scream stout, at least to me. So, can the pecan pie keep this pint in the game? Yes and no. It's literally bite for bite. Pecan pie filling, pecan pie crust. The filling has a phenomenal sugary, sweet pecan gooiness that also has that pecan roastedness to it. It's spectacular. It tastes just like a pecan pie. However, the pecan pie crusts are rather bland. I'm picking this up because it's going to slide off my spoon, but they're rather bland and really only provide that crispier, crunchier bite. The cocoa caramel swirl is just that, a fairly thick but very gooey swirl that hovers around the pecan pie chunks. It has a rich, bold chocolate flavor that mixes with the sweet butteriness of the caramel. Great combo, but I really think it pulls from the flavor of the pecan pie. I am a big time pecan pie fan. In fact, I think it's the second best dessert, but I'm a classic pecan pie fan. Therefore, I think the other flavors actually hurt this pint. The cocoa caramel swirl certainly isn't needed, even though it's good. And a vanilla base would have given you that classic a la mode feeling. 7.5 out of 10.